I'm going to start with the first poem in the book. The hearing we inherit. I cannot manage language, but my body still has more options than to listen. Two men crying in a green truck, the house of the slowly given up. Prayer and periphery both share the same rhythm. I once knew a red-haired white woman suffering from the disease of killing herself. At the white woman's wake, a poet with my name read Hoagland's poem Suicide Song, and it made me sick. In my father's cruelty, he named me Yeshua, a name that carries with it the brutality of a brickbat. And yes, Joshua, you lost your mind again yesterday. How the housewife left her key in the door. And yes, it is all yours, the steer and smear of letting someone in. I've been having a different relationship with ghosts. They came to me in quiet all night, said nothing, but expected something of me. They rarely came to us as children, back when I was at the age when Aunt Brenda would call us nigglets. Back when an older cousin would tease a younger cousin, calling her name synonymous with darkness, like Midnight, Hershey, and Shadow. The ghost watched us with tenderness as to not wake us. On one occasion, I mimicked him, calling the younger cousin black an insult, the look of betrayal on her face. And this was when I learned metaphor, how I must have saw her hue as see-through. Years later, I heard the older cousin try to set a white woman on fire. My cousins, I still love them like I love the night. How we are there and not there. If I could name myself, it would be Wisteria, the sky's fisher. We heard stories of our grandmother in her cabin house shooting away a black bear. Now the ghosts come to me in threes. They say the price of admission is juxtaposition and three forms of forgiveness, in black and gray and red. I say, I love you all, and love you, and love you, and love you. But my hands still shake in June. So this is the second to last poem in the book. It's called A Confession and is for my grandfather. A confession for my grandfather, Henry Pearl Stewart. The poem is better than me. It breaks me where all of my flesh lies. Something black in me broke, felt like a crypt curse, umbellying light seeds from my genetic memory. I speak to my grandfather in the language of a breakdown. Henry Pearl Stewart, a man so stubborn he would pull out his loose teeth with pliers like ruined potatoes rather than going to the dentist. They called him Pistol P, as though his magnum would accent his paragon. I've never been to Alabama except but to go through it. The map south stretches like a threshold, going in and out, an Ouroboros of heat light. In the Caesarean cruel land, sharp note is unearthed. Let's go of our let goes. I like to think all of the dead are reasonable. Was his fear of snakes unreasonable near his fear of being hung? Matty Jones sings to the skull of Bull Connor beneath Bermuda grass. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave. The best way to expose grace is through singing. And there's a song in the curse and the trees following us. Pearl's lynched siblings. His sister was drowned in Birmingham. His brother learned death from walking on the same side of a sidewalk where a white woman was in Birmingham. I heard there were more, but I don't know the siblings' names yet. Except Pearl said he left Birmingham because a woman put a hoodoo curse on him, and not this. Because death can be a many-eyed, problem-solving bargain. As I try not to carry names as weapons or myth them into meaning, I must still learn myself alive. Trauma, like the poem, must look both ways to look at itself. What can stretch from the dead to the living as an unbroken line break? And what can you learn about affinity today? I love my grandfather's hands. He held a figure eight over our heads like two Christ crowns. Shame on you, Joshua, for blowing yourself out of proportion like this. With your six breakdown self, you are no single thing. Shame let loose like a lynch in me. Though I cannot live up to the expectation of black strength and blackness, here I am and thinking of this black insanity uplifted from the root. I must be forgiven somewhere for thinking blackness was the curse. I tied myself to Pearl, a thin rope that snapped, a branch bullied into submission, or like in 8 snaps. Again, again. And this is the title poem of the collection, Grace Engine. I love all the dead, both at the moment they unwed themselves of shame and before that. The two men who think they will never die are two opposing laws, the will to live and the will to live a little longer. In a room in June full of bike parts, empty Bic lighters, and grease, N takes 10 minutes to open the door, and I'm afraid for him. We are like brothers, like canyons, a fulmination between us, all red, all black. My real brother once, while half asleep, put a hot iron against his cheek, thinking it was the phone. It is hard to tell the truth, and it is hard to be in a room with so many words, the walls with holes the size of fists. N pulled the pistol from his jeans and placed it in the space between his ear and eye, like creating an extra sense and pointing to it. Once before, he told me if I were to suicide, he would piss on my grave. Again says, there will be a God at the end of me. Asada Shakur says, some people spell God with 1 O, while others spell it with 2. To be in a room like this, full of white ghosts and ropes tied together in little black knots, is the opposite of being anywhere. After I fought the gun away from him, that hinge of metal between my fingers was human animal. Our fingers and the holes in the metal made us whole as a woman before machining out her second life. And this is the final poem I will read, and it's a poem for a friend who passed away a few years ago. It's called The Worst Houston for Linda. When the body is unbodied, all that is left are myths. A seasonal city failing to know itself. A celestial break in the air. As a child, When I'd break my toy, I'd hide it. When I finally lose my mind, my feet would be the first to go. Sunday mornings, David would call, asking me to visit the grave with him, and he's on his way. I live with the fear of all of the women in my life dying before me. When he arrives, we get on our knees to clean the granite. From afar, I bet the body looks like a black dog behind water. This death is Houston at its very worst. More worse even than at the death of Carl Hampton, that panther who curved like a branch at its end. Back then, my father was a boy watching the Panthers march along Allen Parkway Village. When I was a boy of 5, my hand touched the hot kitchen iron with the curiosity of my 5-year-old mouth kissing my neighbor. At the wake, in a Catholic ritual I did not understand, David wrapped a white cloth around my head for you. Later Sundays at the grave, I think we deserve beauty here too. We clean your stone, a stained glass plate, your small oval photo looking up. Like you sometimes, I want to open up the sky, climb inside like a sunroof to a blue sports car. I too only love God when I'm greedy. When I'm home from the grave, walking into my mother's room is like walking into a coma. She wants me to wash my feet and doesn't want me touching her. On those Sundays, I'd usually arrive at the grave a little early, minutes before David, thinking maybe it is too much to talk to you, but I talk to you. Saying things like, help me find another word for sympathy, or sorry, and wanting you to say, come to my home, touch my hands, I'll keep whatever you leave. Thank you.
Give it up for all of our readers.